Wow. Good morning.
Good morning.
You know, I always say that every day is a good day. In Wisconsin, it is a very good day. We are joined right here at the Sherman Phoenix, a community symbol of rising from the ashes, rebuilding with vision, and fostering a brighter future. Today, I stand before the people of Wisconsin after we rose from the ashes, after we rebuilt this campaign with purpose, and after people of Wisconsin decided that the bright future that working Wisconsin families deserve is worth fighting for.
With the Democrats, what we're seeing is a real fight for the soul of the party in terms of what they're going to stand for moving forward. And this is really translated into what really electability means during these primaries. For a lot of people, it means taking the safer option who will square off better with a Republican in the general election. Those people tend to be moderates, and a lot of them happen to be in some of the more clustered areas in metropolitan areas. It's not really a young, old sort of thing. It has more to do with education. We see some of the higher education people following more of the progressives, and they're trying to give somebody something to vote for. Their argument is that you have to have a fighter. You have to have somebody who will stand up to Donald Trump and stand up to the Democratic establishment in Washington that they feel hasn't been doing enough for voters.
Wisconsin, we have built something that will change politics forever. The work we have done will be remembered forever.
These progressives are doing better than you probably would expect them to in other elections. And it's a real problem for the Democratic Party to reunite. The big winner is some of the progressives on that wing of the party, even though they didn't win all the way in some of the elections. But it's going to be difficult to reunite the party. What we know about reunification for Democrats is there's an old saying, Republicans fall in line and Democrats fall in love. And so you have to convince somebody who voted for somebody else to come back. That's easier for the progressives to do if their candidate wins than for the moderates. And the reason that is because the moderates are motivated just to win. They want somebody who's electable and they really fear the other side. They will come over for the progressive candidate. They'll hold their nose and do it. But when it comes to the moderate candidates, it's much more difficult to attract those progressive voters because they want more ideological purity in the candidates that they're supporting. And they don't see that in some of the moderates who are willing to compromise. The economy is always number one. In every election, it's always about the economy, and affordability is going to be the big issue again this year because it doesn't look like inflation, even though it's coming down a little bit, prices aren't, and that's going to be a big issue for people. But there are some subsidiary issues that can move some voters and may be important in some very close races. We saw in the Minnesota Senate race that the issue of ICE was a huge issue, and we saw Peggy Flanagan, who was a bit more liberal on that issue, get past Angie Craig, who was more moderate and had voted for the Lake and Riley Act. That was a big issue in that election. But Republicans are licking their chops when it comes to immigration because they think that's their issue and that they can use the refrain of abolish ICE the same way they used it against people when they said defund the police.
So I think immigration will be one of Democrats' important issues given the national attention that has come on places like Minnesota and Memphis and other parts of the country with the ICE operations. But I don't know that Minnesota is a good litmus test given the kind of special, unique history recently of ICE activity. So I think immigration will be one issue, but it seems that the economy is really going to be a major issue again in this election, and most likely to be much more important to voters across the country than immigration.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Let's
my respects to Lindsey, who was our friend. He was a friend of all of us. He was a great guy. He was a great politician, actually. And it's hard to believe he's gone.
So Trump has had a mixed history of being a kingmaker. In Republican primaries, he has had a lot of influence over the last decade in endorsing candidates and them being successful in their primaries. Again, not always winning in their general elections, but his endorsement doesn't always carry the day.
Well, we saw Trump's candidates not win across the board. He lost a couple of races, including the Minnesota governor's race. His chosen candidate, Mike Lindell, did not succeed. And Lindsey Graham's sister, who is running for his position, came out first, but not high enough to avoid a runoff against Representative Ralph Northam, who did pretty well in a very crowded field. We'll have to see in the runoff if he's going to be able to give that golden ticket. But certainly, Donald Trump's endorsement is not as much of a guarantee as it had been in some of the earlier primaries.
I want to thank President Trump, his steadfast support, and his complete and total endorsement means so much to me. He knows that I will stand with him and fight for his agenda just like Lindsey did.
Well, interestingly, when Donald Trump is very powerful in the primary races, he tends to elevate candidates who don't do very well against Democrats in the general election simply because he wants somebody who's loyal to him and he likes. And so because of that, you might see some of these candidates who, without the strong endorsement of Donald Trump, are actually able to do it on their own.
You know, pure and simple, this is, as the sign says, political persecution. No man should have to go through what President Trump is sitting through. A judge is his own daughter who's making millions. Should not happen in America.
Democrats do have to find a winning message that they can then carry forward from that election when Trump is no longer either on the ballot or really, in office or a major figure. And the reason I say that is I think that's what Democrats are wrestling with these candidates is there an appetite in the country for more bipartisan, centrist approaches in legislation? Or is there still a lot of lingering, distrust, anger at government, anger at the economy, the state of the economy, and people's paychecks and the effects of inflation on their pocketbooks? And should the Democrats move in a more progressive direction in terms of their policy narrative and their pitch to voters? And is that going to be more successful?